SONA Forum, we ask that you be in our midst. We come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support. Help us to be able to discuss the matters at hand in a reasonable way. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of nation. Let this meeting be productive, and as should be the case in all areas of our lives. Help us to keep you at the forefront of our minds as we do the work set before us. Continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, for the service of our country, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupit, di ka masisingil, sa lalat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mo baha, ay nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang tinamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig, ang bituin ng araw niya kailan pang may magdidilig. Yung palang araw ng maraming pagsikta, buhay ay langit sa likod. Aming ligaya naman may mamahagin, at namatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Today, the government, under the leadership of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, brings the public a platform where relevant milestones can be shared to the citizens. The Office of the Cabinet Secretary and the Presidential Communications Operations Office brings you TATAK ng Pagbabago, a pre-SONA 2018 forum. This initiative covers the policies and programs of the cabinet clusters that supports our President's vision of a comfortable life for every Filipino. To facilitate today's program, we are pleased to have FOI Program Director and PCOO Assistant Secretary for Policy and Special Concerns, Assistant Secretary Christian Ablan.
Cabinet Secretary June Evasco, Department of Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III, the Chairperson of the Economics Development Cluster, Department of Public Works and Highways Secretary Mark Villar, Chairperson of the Infrastructure Cluster, National Economic and Development Authority Secretary and Secretariat Head of the Economic and Infrastructure Clusters, Secretary Ernesto Pernia, other cabinet members who are members of the Economic Development and Infrastructure Clusters, our partners from the private sector, civil society, friends from media and social media, esteemed guests, my fellow workers in government, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to TATAK ng Pag-Unlad, the first of 3 forums in the TATAK ng Pagbabago Road to SONA 2018 series. Thank you. In the first State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, he emphasized the need for everyone, the Filipino people and their government, to bond and help each other in order to truly prevail. This partnership for a change that is positive and felt by all is what has truly driven the country's growth and development. In the second SONA, the President laid the foundation for a comfortable life for all. He outlined the various plans that were and will be undertaken by government in order to achieve this long-term vision. With only a few weeks left till the President's third State of the Nation address, we look back with renewed hope as the policies and projects laid down in the first 2 SONAs have materialized and have thus defined the administration's second year. These services, which have been implemented to make each passing day of the Filipino more comfortable, are the real tatak ng pagbabago or proof of change. In just less than half of the President's 6-year term, the people have already felt the positive changes imbued by this administration. What are these changes, you might ask? Well, that is what we are doing in these weekly forums leading up to SONA on July 23, 2018. These forums are an avenue for the government to reach out to you, our stakeholders, and report to you our accomplishments, future plans, and what they mean for you. This is not one-way communication, but rather a dialogue between those in charge of enhancing government services and the recipients of these services. This is our mandate, being a government of the people. We will work together, hand in hand with you, in order to attain the shared vision of a stable, comfortable, and secure life. It has been a year of a strong and decisive leadership, all for the benefit of the Filipino people. Today, we bear witness to the fruits of the decisions and actions made yesterday. The Office of the Cabinet Secretary, the Office of the Executive Secretary, the Office of the Special Assistant to the President, the Presidential Management Staff, and of course PCOO, are proud to showcase to you the accomplishments of the Economic Development Cluster and the Infrastructure Cluster. These are the tatak ng Pag-Unlad or proof of progress. So sit back, relax, and listen. Later on, participate and ask. We hope you leave today's forum better informed of the government services available for you. Thank you for the opportunity to serve and for your never-ending support to work with us for a better Philippines. Mabuhay and good morning once again.
Sa loob ng 2 taon na pamumuno ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, ay marami na tayong naranasan na tagumpay at pagbabago. Sa kanyang likas na tapang, malasakit at determinasyon, malinaw na siya ang makapaghahatid ng tunay na pagbabago sa ating mga Pilipino. Upang matupad ang mga layunin at hangarin ng ating administrasyon, kaakibat na ating Pangulo ang iba't ibang cabinet clusters sa paghahatid ng pagbabago. Sa kauna-unahang pagkakataon, ipinagkaloob ng administrasyon sa taong bayan ang pre-SONA fora kung saan ilalahad ng cabinet clusters ang kani-kanilang mga patakaran, proyekto at programa sa ilalim ng Administrasyong Duterte. Job opportunities, public transportation, business and agricultural growth at infrastructure projects. Mahalaga ang modernization at innovation sa pag-unlad ng isang bansa. Saklaw ang mga ito ng Economic Development Cluster at Infrastructure Cluster Forum. Ito ang tatak ng pag-unlad. Ang kapakanan ng mamamayang Pilipino ay isa sa mga prioridad ng ating administrasyon. Edukasyon, kalusugan at kabuhayan. Ito ang tatalakayin ng Participatory Governance Cluster at Human Development and Poverty Reduction Cluster. Ito ang tatak ng malasakit at pagkakaisa. Kaligtasan ng bawat Pilipino, kapayapaan sa bansa, pagpapanatili ng kaayusan sa ating kalikasan, kalakasan, at pag-abot ng tulong ang paksa ng clusters ng security, justice, and peace at climate change adaptation, mitigation and disaster risk reduction. Ito ang tatak ng katatagan. Dahil sa patuloy na pagsasagawa ng epektibo at mahusay ng mga patakaran, proyekto at programa ng iba't ibang clusters, tunay na naipadama sa bawat Pilipino ang tatak ng pagbabago.
Now, to give us a message and a comprehensive guide through the Cabinet Cluster System, let us welcome the Cabinet Secretary of the Philippines, Secretary Leoncio Evasco Jr. A warm round of applause for Secretary Evasco.
Carlos Dominguez, Secretary of Finance, at the same time, Chairperson of the Economic Development Cluster. Secretary Mark Villar, Department of Public Works and Highways, at the same time, Chairperson of the Infrastructure Cluster, Secretary Ernesto Pernia of NEDA, members of the Diplomatic Corps here present, members of the Economic Development and Infrastructure Clusters, partners from the private sectors, friends from the media, guests, fellow public workers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It has been 2 years since Mayor Rodrigo Roa Duterte took the helm of governing and leading our country. Amidst the challenges in governance and the presidency, we are grateful to the various national and local government agencies for aligning their efforts, improving their processes, and ensuring the delivery of relevant and timely services to the people with pride, honor, and dignity. We are all witnesses to the President's commitment to bring about change in governance and to really make the lives of every Filipino here and abroad better. During the past two State of the Nation addresses, the President directed the Office of the Cabinet Secretary to streamline the efforts of the bureaucracy along the development and security governance framework of this administration. Part of the innovation in the bureaucracy was to rationalize the cluster system as embodied in Executive Order Number 43, Series of 2011. The President signed Executive Order Number 24, Series of 2017, reorganizing the cabinet cluster system to make it more responsive to the key priorities of this administration, making the following changes. First, the Human Development and Poverty Reduction Cluster, chaired by the Secretary of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, with the National Anti-Poverty Commission Chair as Secretariat. Second, the Security, Justice, and Peace Cluster used to be chaired by the Office of the Executive Secretary, is now chaired by the Secretary of National Defense with the National Security Advisor as Secretariat. Third, the Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation Cluster is now added with the Disaster Risk Reduction Framework, making it CCCAM DDR, chaired by the Secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, with the Climate Change Commission as the Secretariat. Fourth, the Economic Development Cluster, chaired by the Secretary of the Department of Finance and the National Economic Development Authority as the Secretariat. Fifth, the creation of the Infrastructure Cluster emanated from the thrust of this administration to increase infrastructure spending from the 2% mark to at least 5 to 7% of the gross domestic product. The cluster is chaired by the Secretary of the Department of Public Works and Highways, with NEDA as the Secretariat. The above 5 clusters, taking as an aggregate initiative, is the whole of government approach. However, during the campaign, there was massive support from grassroots organizations and civil society. Hence, the decision to transform them to an accountability and transparency mechanism. So the former Good Governance and Anti-Corruption Cluster, headed by the President, was converted to the Participatory Government Cluster. The Participatory Government Cluster is chaired by the Secretary of the Department of Interior and Local Government with the Department of Budget and Management as co-chair and secretariat. The participatory governance cluster effectively operationalized the whole-of-nation approach beyond rhetoric, as this became the window for civil society participation. This cluster is also consistent to the tenets of the open government partnership, of which we are an original signatory. All the 6 clusters were required to come up with their good governance framework as a cross-cutting theme. The Office of the Cabinet Secretary is the office linking all the cabinet clusters and is in charge of closely monitoring the directives and commitments of the clusters. The Performance and Project Management Office, also under the Office of the Cabinet Secretary, is tasked with facilitating and coordinating the implementation of the performance and projects roadmaps of each cluster. These roadmaps identify the target deliverables of each cluster consistent with the Philippine Development Plan 2017 to 2022 and the National Security Plan of 2017 to 2022. For his third State of the Nation address, this 2018, we have reformatted this to allow the President to speak more freely on the matters that he would like to share to the people. Meanwhile, the accomplishment of the administration from July 2017 to June 2018 will be reported in advance to the people by his cabinet clusters in 3 weekly pre-SONA forum. Consistent to the theme of the 2018 SONA, Tatak ng Pagbabago, pre-SONA forum will allow 2 clusters to report their accomplishments and will happen every week of July and will set the stage for the President's SONA on July 23. The first of this is happening today for the chairpersons of the economic development clusters and the infrastructure cluster is tasked to talk about their member agencies' accomplishment related to the priorities of the President and how their various programs are beginning to change the lives of the people. Dubbed as Tatak ng Pagbabago, Tatak ng Pag-Unlad, today's pre-SONA forum will open with a socio-economic report of NEDA Secretary Ernesto Pernia and will also feature the presentations of Secretary of Finance Carlos Dominguez III, Chairperson of the EDC, that is the Economic Development Cluster, and the Secretary of Public Works and Highways Mark Villar, Chairperson of the Infrastructure Cluster, respectively. These presentations will be followed by an open forum. This pre-SONA forum is a collaborative effort of the various offices of the President led by the Office of the Cabinet Secretary, the Office of the Executive Secretary, the Office of the Special Assistant to the President, the Presidential Management Staff, and the Presidential Communication Operations Office, the Economic Development Cluster, and the Infrastructure Clusters, chairpersons and their respective members, agency, and their secretariats. My profound gratitude goes to the Department of Public Works and Highways for funding this event. As the President's partners in ensuring the real change will happen and will truly benefit the people, we request your continued support, collaboration, and participation to the administration whole of the nation approach towards a better Philippines for the Filipinos. Daghang salamat ug maayong buntag sa tanan.
Malasakit or enhancing the social fabric. Pagbabago or inequality reducing transformation. Patuloy na pag-unlad or increasing growth potential. These are the three pillars of the Philippine Development Plan or the PDP 2017 to 2022, the first medium-term development plan geared towards the realization of Ambisyon Natin 2040. By 2022, a foundation is built for inclusive growth, a high-trust and resilient society, and a globally competitive knowledge economy. A year after the rollout of the Philippine Development Plan 2017 to 2022, we have reached significant milestones in sectors necessary in our pursuit of a matatag, maginhawa, at panatag na buhay para sa lahat. We tell these milestones in a book, the Socioeconomic Report 2017, Facilitating Transition, Implementing Change. The Socioeconomic Report, or SER 2017, chronicles the progress we have made in implementing the PDP 2017 to 2022. It is a narrative of accomplishments in core indicators. For the year 2017, we have sustained economic growth, increased the per capita income growth rate, kept food inflation rate stable, cut underemployment in areas outside the national capital region, and improved the Philippines' rank in the Global Innovation Index. We have laid down the groundwork for change in 2017 and have moved a step closer to our 2022 goals. For 2018 and 2019, we will continuously facilitate your transition to fully implement the change that we want to achieve. Our journey to attaining our ambition has begun. Let us continuously work together for a matatag, maginhawa, at panatag na buhay para sa lahat.
Now, I was informed they hear us very clearly on PTV and on Facebook Live, but here in the forum we have to adjust the sounds. In any case, now to present to us the 2017 Socio-Economic Report and the current state of the Philippine economy, let us welcome Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Ernesto Pernia of the National Economic Development Authority.
Honorable members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, colleagues in the President's Cabinet, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The President will deliver his third State of the Nation address in 2 weeks' time. And this early, we have every reason to expect that his speech will be cheered on, particularly on the economic and infrastructure fronts. This confidence is anchored on parameters that are measurable and outlined in the Philippine Development Plan 2017 to 2022. Today, we take stock of the progress we have made in implementing the President's medium-term economic blueprint. The first year of the PDP's implementation has seen challenges, encountered a few bumps and hiccups. But through it all, we emerged counting many triumphs. I am pleased to give you a brief overview of the country's socioeconomic status, as well as accomplishments in the first-year implementation of President Duterte's economic blueprint, the Philippine Development Plan 2017 to 2022. First, economic growth has been high and steady, with a 6.7% growth in GDP in 2017, the economy accelerated by 6.8% in the first quarter of this year. As we have been saying ad nauseam now, this makes the Philippines one of the fastest growing economies in Asia, next only to India and Vietnam, and at par with China. The first quarter performance likewise marks the 10th consecutive quarter we recorded growth of 6.5% or higher. The economy is undergoing structural transformation as well, as growth is now increasingly being driven by investments vis-à-vis consumption on the demand side and by the industry sector, manufacturing in particular, relative to the service sector on the supply side. The resurgence of the manufacturing sector is especially noteworthy, with the volume of production expanding by 20% in May 2018, sustaining its double-digit growth since last year. This means that the quality of economic growth is improving, which implies that it is sustainable and able to create quality jobs. The government's massive infrastructure program, Build, 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 should contribute further to this growth in the following quarters and years. As detailed during our recent NEDA press briefing, we expect to spend as much as 7.3% of GDP cash basis on public infrastructure. We have already hit the ground running and envision the completion of 32 of our 75 flagship infrastructure projects by the end of 2022, while making sure that the 4,909 other projects in the provinces and regions, in the provinces and towns throughout the country will have broken ground, if not completed by then. Gross national income per capita also grew annually at 4.8% in 2017, well over our target of 4.5% for the year. Thus, our country will join the ranks of upper middle income countries by the end of 2019. That's the definition of the IMF and the World Bank of middle income country, upper middle income country. We do not have as yet an update of our poverty incidence data, as the next family income and expenditure surveys are slated to be conducted this month and in January next year. But we are given the assurance that results will be available and usable next year. Even so, we are seeing encouraging results on self-rated poverty surveys. According to the SWS survey last March, there are fewer families who are rating themselves as poor or mahirap. The number of self-rated poor families ranked from 50% in the first quarter of 2017 to 42% in the first quarter of 2018. As you know, self-rating of poverty is higher than the official poverty data coming from surveys of the Philippine Statistics Authority. Also, the same SWS survey found out that the number of families who consider themselves food poor was 29%, which is a record low. While our inflation rate for the first year of 2018 went slightly off target at 4.3% due to the rise in prices of rice, actually. First rice, fuel, fish, and beverages. We see this to be temporary as we transition towards fully implementing important public policy reforms. Unemployment rate from the April round of the labor force survey this year was down to 5.55% versus a year ago, 5.7%, 5.5 versus 5.7% last year. This is the lowest recorded unemployment rate for all of the April labor force surveys in the past decade. This puts the unemployment rate in the first half of 2018 at 5.4%, continuing its downward trend over the years. Rapid economic growth has also translated in significant gains, with 1.5 million additional employment generated in the first half of the year, well on track of our achievement of between 900,000 and 1.1 million employment generation in 2018. Our goal is to further bring unemployment rate down to 4.7% this year. Further, I am pleased to note that we have exceeded our target to reduce underemployment rate in areas outside the National Capital Region, which was already down to 17% in 2017. Moreover, emerging numbers tell us that we remain on target this year. Unemployment rate in areas outside the National Capital Region was at 18% in the first half of 2018. This is consistent with our goal of spreading growth to the regions, especially the lagging regions. Gains are likewise seen in the health and education sectors. Child health outcomes improved as we have brought down infant and under 5 mortality rates. We are seeing fewer infant mortality per 1,000 live births, from 23 in 2013 to 21 in 2017. Under 5 mortality per 1,000 live births also decreased from 31 in 2013 to 27 in 2017. Improvements in maternal health care services are likewise being realized. Births delivered at a health facility rose from 61% in 2013 to 78% in 2017, and births attended by skilled health workers increased from 73% in 2013 to 84% in 2017. Total fertility rate also declined from an average of 3 births per woman in 2013 to 2.7 births per woman in 2017. Still, we need to accelerate the implementation of the responsible parenthood and family planning programs throughout the country to help reduce poverty incidence from 21.5% in 2015 to 14% by 2022, lifting about 6 million Filipinos out of poverty by then. On education, we are seeing a steady decline in elementary and secondary students dropping out of school. Students reaching the final year of elementary and high school increased to 94% and 85% respectively in school year 2016 to 2017, as opposed to 87% and 82% recorded in school year 2015 to 2016. The number of students receiving government support for tertiary education will likewise dramatically increase, with the free tuition policy in state universities and colleges already in place. Lastly, we have also moved a notch in the 2017 Global Innovation Index. The Philippines is now ranked 73rd out of 127 economies covered by the said report, branding the country as one of the new Asian tigers and leaders in ICT service exports in Southeast Asia. I cannot, in one go, give you all the socioeconomic indicators we have been tracking. These are all detailed in the 2017 Socioeconomic Report. which has been published and is also posted in the NEDA website. It showcases the gains achieved thus far, as well as priority strategies and policy directions for the next 2 years. In retrospect, the Philippine Development Plan 2017 to 2022 promises to lay the foundation for attaining the country's long-term vision, ambition natin 2040, while addressing short-term and medium-term needs. The strategies outlined in the plan can only be effective if implemented against a backdrop of important reforms, many of which already started groundwork last year. This year will be an important transition period as we expect full implementation of many of our planned programs and proposed socioeconomic policies next year. While many challenges and risks lie ahead, I am confident that we will reach our targets and further our national development agenda. The government's economic development and infrastructure clusters remain committed to its mandate of ensuring stable, sustainable, and most importantly, sustainable economic growth. Thank you and good morning to all. Mabuhay.
The Economic Development Cluster, or EDC, is mandated to promote rapid, inclusive, and sustained economic growth, overseeing socioeconomic policies and monitoring issues at the national level. As one of the 6 cabinet clusters under Executive Order Number 24, the EDC has 5 major goals in particular. Promote an environment that is favorable to the growth and competitiveness of private enterprises and the creation of jobs that will empower people and provide them with opportunities to rise above poverty. The EDC is tasked with improving farms and rural enterprises vital to achieving food security and more equitable economic growth. To support the requirements of micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises as well as national industries, the EDC conducts relevant research and development in the area. The EDC seeks to improve national productivity and competitiveness of national products and services and ensure deep and wide distribution of economic opportunities and benefits of the Filipino people. As with all other cabinet clusters, the EDC adopts good governance objectives and formulates a performance and projects roadmap that identifies critical targets and annual deliverables in line with the Philippine Development Plan, all of which are geared towards becoming the TATAK ng Pag-Unlad, with the goal of matatag, maginhawa, at panatag na buhay para sa lahat.
To start the first pre-SONA 2018 forum, may we call on stage Secretary Carlos Dominguez III from the Department of Finance, the Chair of the Economic Development Cluster. A big round of applause, please.
Morning, Secretary Evasco, Secretary Ernesto Pernia, Secretary Mark Villar, Secretary Artugade, His Excellency Gordon Crick, the German Ambassador to the Philippines, His Excellency Koji Haneda, the Ambassador from Japan to the Philippines, President Vince Dizon of BCDA, representatives from Congress, members of the media and academe, youth groups and business community, fellow workers in government. First of all, let me apologize that my presentation will have 40% is duplicative of Ernie's very good presentation. The Philippine economy is on course. We are well on our way to providing the inclusive development of that our people aspire for. Over the next few years, we expect our economy to continue to be among the growth leaders in the region. In the first quarter of this year, the Philippine economy grew by 6.8%. We hope to achieve a faster rate for the rest of the year to bring us closer to the 7% target. Our first quarter growth figure caps 77 consecutive quarters of sustained economic expansion. Over the last 10 quarters, our growth rate was 6.5% or better. We are clearly building on a strong momentum. The biggest contributor to our GDP expansion are manufacturing, which is growing at 8%, industry, which is growing by 7.9%, and services with a growth of 7%. Slowly but surely, we are shifting from consumption-led to investment-led growth. At that rate of expansion, and with strong investment inflows contributing to more inclusive growth, we hope to bring down the poverty rate from 21.6% in 2015 to only 14% by 2022. This means pulling up 1 million Filipinos from below the poverty line each year henceforth. This is the most important number we all hope to achieve. All development efforts will be meaningless if they do not translate into liberating our people from the curse of poverty. Our economic strategy is anchored on two major programs: the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program and the Build infrastructure modernization already in place. The first package of tax reform passed before the close of last year, and it has produced the remarkable results we have expected. In the first quarter of 2018, our tax effort rose from 13.4% of GDP to 14.3%. This is the highest first quarter tax effort ever achieved in the past 25 years. From January to May, revenue collections grew by 19% over the same period last year. In fact, the Bureau of Internal Revenue improved its collection by a remarkable 15.5% growth over the same period in 2017. Not to be outdone, the Bureau of Customs improved its collection by 31.2% here. By 2022, the share of GDP going to infrastructure investments will rise to 7.3%. These investments will close the infrastructure gap with our neighboring economies. It will stimulate domestic economic activity and ensure that every community and every island participates in the mainstream of national wealth creation. The improved connectivity brought about by the modernization of our infrastructure backbone will also enable us to take full advantage of regional economic integration within the framework of ASEAN. It will enable us to attract industrial investments seeking access to the increasingly integrated ASEAN market. Meanwhile, the average inflation rate during the first 6 months of this year was 4.3%. This is above the target range of 2 to 4% for the whole year, but within the DBCC's forecast of 4 to 4.5%. We are confident that with the relaxation of oil prices in the global market, the consolidation of the peso's exchange rate, and the normalization of rice supply, we can pull back the inflation rate to within target range. While slightly elevated, the inflation rate during the first 6 months of the year is understandable. Economies expanding at a fast clip tend to put pressure on supply. This is particularly true of our economic performance. The tax reform law increased the purchasing power of our communities. The massive importation of capital goods needed for the Build program increased our trade deficit and weakened the peso. The rice situation pushed prices to abnormal levels. None of these factors are permanent infirmities, but without tax reform, the infrastructure program that it is funding, we will continue to suffer high costs of production and transportation. While the tax reform and better infrastructure, the road to higher productivity and thus lower and stable inflation is within reach. The bill that will shift rice trading from quantitative restrictions to tariffs is in its final stages of legislation. This should ensure adequate rice supplies and prevent uncertainty we saw when NFA rice dissipated, causing a spike in rice prices. The speedier implementation of the cash transfer program for the poorest Filipino families will help ease inflation's impact. The national ID system will also greatly enhance the efficiency of transactions in our economy. The debt to GDP ratio held steady at 42.1% of GDP in 2017, the same rate as 2016. We continue to prudently manage our obligations, and we are confident that the rapid expansion of the domestic economy will enable us to decrease our debt further to 39% of GDP in 2022. Given the rapid expansion of our GDP, we will certainly outgrow our debt. Those who raise the specter of a debt crisis arising from our use of official development assistance to finance infrastructure program are not reading the numbers well enough. Foreign businessmen also brought in a record amount of investments into the country last year. The foreign direct investment inflows reached a record high of $10 billion, double what it rated in 2015. For the first quarter of 2018, FDI totaled $2.2 billion in net inflows, an increase of 43.5% compared to the same period last year. This is indicative of the broader and sustained increase of investment inflows into our economy. The higher volume of foreign direct investment supports our efforts to shift our economy to investments-led growth. By achieving this shift, we aspire to provide meaningful employment to the young, well-trained Filipinos entering the workforce in the coming years. As of April of this year, Philippines' unemployment rate has dropped to 5.5%, lower than the same period last year. 625,000 jobs were created. Of this number, 605,000 Filipinos were employed in manufacturing and construction. This is testimony to the great multiplier effects of our infrastructure investments. Although our balance of trade chronically falls into deficit, the total Philippine merchandise exports reached $62.87 billion in 2017. This represents a strong 9.53% growth over 2016 performance. We will surely try harder to get double-digit growth in our export performance. Moreover, our agriculture and fisheries sector registered a remarkable 4% gross value added growth in 2017, reversing the 1.2% decline in 2016. In the first quarter of 2018, our agriculture grew by 1.7%. rice production grew by 9.4%, translating to 1.65 million metric tons yield last year. For the first time ever, we are poised to export corn to neighboring countries as we improve both hectareage and yield for the crop. Reforms in other areas also support our economic strategy. The Department of Trade and Industry has set an ambitious goal of putting the country in the top 20% in the ease of doing business rankings. With all our efforts at simplifying processing, speeding up approvals for startups, and reducing red tape, this should be an achievable goal. The global economy, to be sure, could pose numerous challenges to our growth in the coming period. We are looking at the possibility of increased protectionism and some uncertainty that could affect the oil prices. A full-fledged trade war could impair the global economy's capacity to grow.
DBM and NEDA. Do we have any questions? Yes. Kindly approach the center microphone, sir. Up. Yes, sir. We have a microphone in the middle.
Good morning po. My name is Ariel Camarillo from Magsasaka Incorporated. NGO po kami. Magsasaka Incorporated is magkakasama sa sakahan at kaunlaran. Very positive po yung mga numbers na ipinresent sa atin. Better unemployment rate po bumaba. Yung poverty line target natin is from 21 to 14% by 2022. So being representative po ng agricultural sector, ang question ko po is yung revenue collection natin is dinadrive natin so we could build yung we could support po yung build program po natin. And I could see po doon sa numbers na 70% will go to infrastructure and 30% po sa social services and human capital development. Ang gusto ko lang pong itanong sana sa panelists natin, especially sa Department of Agriculture po natin, ang 33% po ng labor force po natin ay nanggagaling po sa agricultural sector. And we'd like to know po sana, paano po susuportahan ng government right now itong agricultural sector natin? Being 70% of the rural pool po ay nanggagaling po sa ating fishermen and mga farmers. So, ano po ang plan natin dito, specific po sa agriculture?
Thank you for that question. Before we proceed, I forgot to call on stage the representative of the Department of Budget Management, Director Rolando Toledo. All right. Thank you, sir. I think the question was addressed to the Department of Agriculture. Can we ask Yusek Serrano to respond?
Maraming salamat po doon sa tanong ninyo. Meron pong tayong in-announce na paradigm shift sa agriculture. Unang-una, yung ating pong mga direct subsidies katulad ng seeds at fertilizers ay i-convert po natin yan ng mga pagtulong sa pag-connect sa ating mga magsasaka sa mga bangko. So it's a easy financial access of our farmers. Dahil po, importante po yan, bago sila maka-adapt ng teknolohiya na kasama din po sa programa natin, kailangan meron silang access sa financial markets. Yung pong mga dating programa, nagpo-procure ang gobyerno, pagkatapos ay pinapamahagi sa mga magsasaka. Aside from the fact na this is prone to a lot of leakage and corruption, pagdating po nung subsidy sa magsasaka, ay tapos na siyang nagtanim, tapos na siyang mag-fertilizer, wala pong ibang patutunguhan. So, hindi po siya efficient na system. Isa po yun. Pangalawa, ang ating pong thrust ngayon, aside from yung pagpapalaganap ng makabagong teknolohiya at yung mekanisasyon, dahil nga po kailangan yung ating labor productivity ay tumaas, ay kinakailangan din po na ang ating yung coordination with the LGUs. Dahil po ang Department of Agriculture, ang national government ay hanggang region lang po kami. So yun po ang pinapalakas namin, yung extension system. Yung pong pagtayo ay nag-liberalize, lalong-lalo na sa sektor ng pagpapalay at ng bigas. Yung pong tariff revenues na makukuha natin dito sa liberalisasyon ng sektor na ito ay pupunta at makakatulong doon sa modernisasyon din ng ating pagsasaka. So ito po in general yung outline ng shift natin. Mas malaking suporta, mas targeted ang suporta sa ating agricultural sector. At yung sinabi po ng ating mga economic managers ay malaki po ang pakinabang din nun. Pag maganda ang infrastruktura, maganda ang tax collection, mas targeted ang expenditure natin sa social support services, ang isa pong malaking makikinabang dyan ay yung ating rural population o yung mga mamamayan sa kanayunan. Salamat po.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you po.
You have a follow-up question?
Yung importation po natin ng meats in 2017, nag-increase po by 7%. So how do we want to address po yung issue ng importation natin ng mga meats like chicken, beef?
Ang mga sektor na ito po ay completely liberalized na po yan. Ang thrust po ng department, including the other agencies of government, is providing the environment to increase investments doon sa sectors na ito. Mga private sector investment-driven po ang ating poultry at livestock sector. So we should be able to, for example, maintain our FMD-free status as a country. We need to maintain and even improve our animal health system. Ito po yung mga services na natin. And we also have a special program for our small producers. You will note that in the swine sector, 75% is backyard or small. So ito po yung ating main thrust. Yung importation po, ang importante lang po dyan, we have to ensure that the commodities that enter our territories are safe. And we have the improvements in the sanitary and phytosanitary quarantine system that should take care of that.
So you can support din po, sir, yung natin, mga NGO.
Factory of domestic workers. So, your honorable ladies and gentlemen, me as the representative of the sector, what we are doing for the TATAK Pagbabago, TATAK Pag-Unlad, at kasama rin po tayo sa Ambition 2014, but by 2040, the migrants and the overseas employment will no longer be a necessity, but is no longer a choice. Wala po tayo nakikita ngayon sa TATAK Pagbabago in regards to the plano ng ating mahal na presidente tungkol sa sektor natin or sa 10 milyon na mga overseas Filipino worldwide. Maraming salamat po, sir. Good morning.
Thank you po, Congressman. Can we get a response po either from DOF, DBM po o NEDA regarding OFWs? Secretary, I think the question of Congressman is what is the project of the Duterte administration with regards to OFWs considering of their billions of remittances they send to the country?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
If I may venture a response?
Yes.
As you know, yung binanggit niyo po kanina ni Congressman, the ambition natin 2040, in fact, one of the aspirations that we have found out is that Filipinos would like for their families to be together. Kaya tama po yung sinabi niyo that sana by that time, migration is a matter of choice, not a matter of necessity. In the PDP 2017 to 22, 2022, marami po tayo doon nakalatag na programa para sa mga OFW, actually in all chapters. No? Kasama na po dito yung pag-include sa kanila in the national ID system. At siguro over time, we will be discussing more about this kasi magiging foundational po yung ID na ito. And this will greatly help in establishing providing them